In multiple videos now, I've spoke about different things that you can prepare for Mr. Pandaria, and have been very generic, as in things that everyone can prepare, like getting lots of scribes ready, or farming lots of pets and being able to get pets from places like Darkmoon Faire and things like that. Now, what many of you know is I'm going to be rolling, excuse the pun, multiple monks in Mr. Pandaria. And if there's one thing I love about any new upcoming expansion or new old expansion, is being able to get prepared. Having reasons to log on and things to farm in the current expansion ready that are just going to make leveling easier or make life easier or make the characters more powerful, ultimately. So I've been getting loads of stuff ready for my monk, and some of it might give you some ideas on what you can go and farm now or things that you should get ready. Now, I want to put it out there straight away. Do you need to do any of this? Absolutely not. But should you do some of it? I would say it's going to make your life a lot easier if you do. Now, I spoke about it in tons of videos, and I'll just mention it again extremely briefly, but if you plan on doing pet battling at all, it's definitely worth picking up a few pets, in particular mechanical pets. If you haven't heard me talk about Darkmoon Faire, get the Darkmoon Faire Zeppelin and Tonk, and probably the Clockwork Gnome as well. If you was to run those free, you'll be absolutely fine. Now, I don't want to talk any more about pets because, quite honestly, just get as many pets as you can, because if there's level brackets that you don't like when you're leveling your monk, you can subsidize some levels with pet battles. But anyway, onto the juicy stuff. What have I actually been preparing? Well, this that you're looking on screen is literally enough preparation for one monk, and some of it's pretty self-explanatory and some of it's not. Now, first of all, deciding what profession your monk's going to be is going to be the first step. Mine's going to be engineering and inscription. So if you haven't seen my inscription guide, go and check it out, because what you'll be able to do is just buy enough black fallow ink to then be able to go trade down to the other inks, and then you'll have literally a full inscription set just sat there ready to go. And to be fair, doing it like this don't take up much bank space either. Then I've also got a full engineering kit as well. I've also made the materials to be able to go goblin engineering straight away, so I don't need to worry about that. And also have a gnomish army knife from the word go as well, just so I don't need to worry about arclight spanners and blacksmithing hammers and all of that jazz. Now, of course, this is not a one solution fits all, because it's ultimately going to come down to what professions you're doing, but me doing engineering and inscription, I'm going to have all of this sat ready. Of course, getting some bags ready so you can send them straight over to your level 1 monk. I've personally just got 4 ready to go into the bank and 4 ready to go onto the character. And then something else that I've spoke about in other videos, which we don't know if it's going to stay like it, but you might as well do it just in case it does, and that's making some heirloom heads. Obviously, the ones that are really relevant here is the level ones, so that'll be for Brewmaster and Windwalker, and then the leather intellect one for Mistweaver, but actually go in and put in a head enchant on them now. Now, if you're not aware, head enchants get removed completely in Mr. Pandaria, but when we copy our characters over to the beta, the ones that are currently on their heads do stay. But the ones that are in your bag, or the ones that would come from the vendor, obviously on the vendor they're not there anymore, but if you've got any from the vendor still in your bag, they'll just vendor for 25 gold. Now, because enchants scale with level, of course, you're not going to get 60 agility and 35 haste from level 1, but any extra stats is definitely worth it. Now, you might be wondering why I've got 4 different heads here. Obviously, these 2 here are for the monk, and then the ones in the bank is for if I ever do a caster or a hunter / enhancement shaman. I'll be honest with you, at the moment, I've not even bothered with the other ones, as in the plate heads or anything like that, but I may do at some point, but I don't really plan on leveling anything from level 1 that's going to be using plate anyway. Now, it's important that you know how enchants work for when it comes to doing your monk, because while they do scale with level, certain enchants at certain level brackets will be better than others. So I'll put a link below to this heirloom sheet, which basically shows you how they'll scale. So every enchant that you put on your weapon won't change between 1 and 60. But then from 61 to 70, they'll scale up, 71 to 80, they'll scale up, etc., etc. So you might think, oh, well, if they scale, I'll just get Landslide and I'll put Landslide on my weapons. Well, actually, no, because at the earlier levels, things like Mongoose will just scale better, and even things like Avalanche or Fiery Weapon, those sort of enchants that do damage, are going to be particularly strong at lower level, because the proc, when they go off, is going to be enough to pretty much one-shot stuff. So like you can see, I've got an assortment of enchants ready, and I will be changing my weapon enchants pretty much every time I hit a new expansion. Some standout ones for me would be Avalanche for the damage, Mongoose for the agility and haste, which remains extremely strong all the way from level 1 till about level 80. Obviously, Landslide for when you're 80 plus. And if you plan on soloing dungeons as something like Brewmaster, then Mending can be particularly strong as well for the self-healing. Now, a couple of really strong low-level enchants are going to be things like Enchant Gloves Minor Haste, because 10 haste from level 1 is absolutely huge, and also minor speed on boots, again being able to move faster even from level 1. Whilst minor haste, for example, will get outscaled by things like major agility very fast, if we're just talking from sort of level 1 to maybe 15, getting 10 haste at such low level is absolutely banging, so you want a couple of those scrolls at least. And then of course you're going to want a shoulder enchant from Ferrazane to go on your heirloom shoulders, and I picked up a bunch of leg enchants as well. Now before I get onto weapons, which is going to be a very important section, let's just briefly talk about non-heirloom slots. So like you can see, I've gone as low as level 9 because I will put a big char scale leg armor on something like these level 9 legs, because then I'm going to be tanking as Brewmaster in dungeons on the way up, as well as obviously following Rested XP to knock out easy quest zones. There's a link to Rested XP in the pinned comment and description. Any guide you buy go towards supporting the channel, so thanks in advance for that. But basically any non-heirloom slot, and especially the non-heirloom slots where you can put big enchants on like the leg armors, you're going to want a selection of, particularly for when you hit a new expansion. So for example, at 61 I've got some legs for as soon as I go into TBC dungeons. At level 71 the same for Wrath of the Lich King, and then I'll do the same for pretty much gloves, belts, boots. Just get some really strong agility stamina items to go alongside your heirlooms. And as I say, you don't want them for every single level, but even if they're spaced out about 20 levels apart and you've got 4 or 5 sets of each, they're so cheap at the moment on the auction house, there's kind of no reason not to. And the better you can keep your gear while you're leveling, the quicker you're going to smash through dungeons. And again, if you was doing what I was doing on the beta and you were soloing dungeons, which don't get me wrong, at launch, that's not what I'm going to be doing. I am going to be doing dungeons as a group, but as the Brewmaster that does ridiculous amounts of damage, every single upgrade is ultimately going to speed up those runs, meaning more XP an hour. Okay, now let's talk about the weapons. The weapons are incredibly important. You're probably thinking there's nothing important about weapons, because you're going to go into the pre-patch with your Justice Point cap of 4k on a couple of different characters, and then just upgrade the heirloom maces, for example, to level 85, and that's going to be you done until, well, basically, you hit 85. Whilst you can absolutely do that, if you want really strong power spikes where you're leveling to the point where your damage almost feels like it doubles just from changing your weapons, then actually there's a few that you want to get, and 2 of them are incredibly strong, but very boring. It took me about 14 hours yesterday. Yeah, I'm that sad to get 2 of these. So in terms of weapons, what I'm going to be doing is getting the Warden Staff heirloom, which will get added in the pre-patch. So I'll make sure I've got enough justice points on a character to be able to buy that, and then on another character to be able to upgrade it. I'll be using that until level 10, and then I'll be switching to 2 one-handed agility maces. I'll probably run around with one with fiery weapon and one with dancing steel to begin with, and I'll just be using these heirloom maces all the way until 71. And you're probably like, 71, that's a weird level. Trust me, it's going to make sense. If you go around and do archaeology in Northrend, so in the Wrath of the Lich King zones, you're looking for Vrykul solves. There's only 2 rares that come from Vrykul archaeology, and one of which is the Niflvar Bearded Axe. So it doesn't take too long to get. I say too long, as I say, it took me about 7 hours for each one of these, but I could have been particularly unlucky. Now, these weapons are absolutely insane. They cannot stand up to the agility one-handed heirloom weapons at all. It's at this point when you use these, you can pretty much throw your heirloom weapons away because you're not going to use them again. I'm going to be using the Niflvar Bearded Axes all the way up to level 78 because you can see the comparison between the Niflvar Bearded Axes and the one-handed agility maces is absolutely huge, literally all the way up to like level 81. But even at 81, you're not going to be using the heirloom weapons again. As I say, this will be the last time you use the heirloom weapons at level 70. As soon as you hit 71, you're not going to need them again. Obviously, that is assuming that you do exactly the same preparation as me. But I'm going to use Niflvar Bearded Axes till 78, and then I'm going to use Bertos Staff. Now, you can go and pick Bertos Staff up on the auction house for about 30 gold, which is an absolute steal considering it vendors for 27 gold. But look at the absolutely monstrous jump in DPS and just general stats as well. I'm comparing it to the two-handed mace at the moment just because the mace and the staff have identical stats, so it's completely irrelevant. As long as you're comparing a two-hand to a two-hand, that's all that matters. But you can see Bertos Staff, due to how high eye level it is, because technically you're still at the Wrath of the Lich King levels, but now using a Cataclysm item level weapon. But then I'm going to use Bertos Staff until 81, where I'm going to go back to dual wield and I'm going to get the heavy Geode maces. Now, you could just go and farm these from trash in Stonecore now, or go and pick them up off the auction house for, I don't know, about 100 gold each tops. And then the real big jump in weapons is going to be at level 83. And you're going to want to get hold of 2 perforators. Now, these are a little bit more expensive. I still only paid about 150 gold for each of them, but you'll be dual wielding these and they've both got a socket in each. Now, you're literally going to use these until 85 when you replace it with something from like the Twilight vendor, or unless you just go straight in Dragon Soul and get a weapon from the raid. But you're going to be able to put 2 big 50 agility gems in these, obviously 1 in each, giving you an extra 100 agility on top of the 190 agility you get for using them anyway, so they just give insane amount of stats, and they're 333 eye level. And then again, you're going to replace these with something from the raid, so really your item level progression from level 71 should be Niflvar bearded axes into a Bertos staff, into dual heavy geode maces, into dual perforators. Now, it would be around the time of Bertos staff onwards where I'd have Landslide on everything, and before that, I'd still probably be using Mongoose, to be honest, because I do like the fact that it's agility and haste. Now, before we get onto any endgame stuff, you can see some other things that are in my bag, so we might as well talk through them. Now, firstly, Darkmoon Fair. All of these give XP, and there's 2 of them that are level 85, but there's a reason I've got those myself still anyway. When we get the first Darkmoon Fair in the pre-patch, assuming we get a Darkmoon Fair in the pre-patch, if we don't, it doesn't matter, this preparation isn't wasted, because there's a new pet called a Darkmoon Hatchling, which I'm going to want because I'm going to want all the pets. So by having all of these quest items, I'm going to get 80 tokens. I'll then do a couple of the profession quests over at Darkmoon Fair, and I'll be able to get the Darkmoon Hatchling. The good thing is, if there's a Darkmoon Fair whilst I'm leveling, I'm going to be able to hand all these in for a chunk of XP. So it's kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I also picked up the decks that you can hand in for a very small amount of XP, just in case the Darkmoon Fair's there as well. These cost practically nothing, so I don't mind if it ends up being wasted. I just grabbed them anyway. And then I've also prepared consumables, using 25 agility elixirs at level 38 all the way up till 55, where I'll switch to elixir of major agility. I've then got a few flasks of relentless assault, which will just tide me over until I can use mighty agility. Although, to be fair, I'll probably still stick with relentless assault and skip mighty agility, but I've got them there in case I run out of the flasks. And then, of course, I'm literally going to be using Endless Rage at level 75 all the way until level 80 when I can use Flask of the Winds. You could go a little bit more overboard than I have with consumables, but quite honestly, this is enough for me. I might pick up some of the lower level agility ones as well, just to do me at low level, but I'm having to be really careful with bag space because I don't want everything spread over on multiple characters, so yeah, if I've got room in my bags by the time I've finished, I'll pick some up. I've got some healing potions as well for level 70 plus, and it's the big runic healing potions. This is just in case I'm soloing any dungeons or soloing Amphitheatre of Anguish or anything like that. A stack of fortune cookies just to tide me over from 80 to 85. And then a couple of big ones, or what I consider big ones. So the Adventurer's Journals. These get removed from the game, but only the ability to craft them. If we go historically in Mists of Pandaria, this is exactly what happened. Any Adventurer's Journals that were still in the game could be used, but there could be no new ones added by crafting them. Now, these have a chance at giving you extra XP, as well as some other buffs that we don't really care about. So I've got 13 of them, which is far too many, because they only work from 75 to 85. But I'm keeping hold of them, just in case they work, just in case I get lucky and get the XP buff, on top of maybe Joyous Journeys, which I highly doubt's going to be there, to be honest with you, but obviously the 50% XP monk bonus as well. So again, something else that's worth grabbing and just keeping a stack in your bag. And then the last one, I picked up Janas Locket, and this was expensive. I don't expect everybody to get it, but I kind of hate not having additional ways to travel. So as soon as I can get the Kirantor ring from Dalaran, I'll be buying that as well. I'm going to have my dimensional rippers, even the wormhole generator as well, because I'm going to be engineering. But I just like having extra ways to get around. So having that 1 hour cooldown and it being a portal as well, which is useful to more people than just yourself, I had to grab one for my monk, because I'm going to be playing the monk for hopefully many years to come. When it comes to leveling, another thing I'm working on at the moment is any quests that I can just buy the items for off the auction house. Now, I've not got a full plan for this yet because I'm going to mostly be doing dungeons, but there will be zones that I can just get to quickly, hand things in, and obviously move on. So I'll keep you updated on this because it is something that I'm actually working through at the moment. And then obviously, max level. Yay, grats. We've dinged level 85. I picked up the 378 BOE hands, as well as every 397 piece that I could get. So that's the 397 crafted legs from leatherworking, the 397 trash drop from Dragon Soul, and then the Valor Point boots and bracers. So if you've got any characters that have got lots of Valor points on now, you can pick both of these up. But when we get into the pre-patch, you should be able to buy them for Justice points anyway, so there is no rush. Oh, I picked up some belt buckles as well as a couple of archaeology items, which I might use if I go Mistweaver at all while I'm leveling. And now I can take a breath. That's pretty much it. It's been a decent amount of preparation, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not even finished yet. But hopefully, if you're rolling Monk and you're kind of looking for things to do in Cataclysm now, this might have just gave you some ideas. Of course, when it comes to the launch of Mr. Pandaria, I'm also going to be pre-stacking quests and all of that stuff on the Monk, and there'll be a guide from Rested XP for that coming out, well, before launch anyway, which I'm sure I'll be shouting about everywhere, so stay tuned for that. But if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. Consider joining the channel as a member. I have actually got a members-only video out at the moment, which I may make public at some point, but it's actually about how I'm going to be dual boxing monks. So if that interests you at all, then, and you're a member, obviously, don't miss it. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.